Hi, today we're going to make some Kaiser buns. We're going to start with 1.5 tablespoons of instant yeast. I always like to put my yeast in my bowl first with the water, so you want to make sure your water is nice and warm so that your yeast can start to work while you put the rest of the ingredients in. So that is 2 cups of warm water. We are going to add in 1.5 tablespoons of sugar. And I have 1/3 of a cup of oil. There's always some kind of a fat in your bread, whether that's shortening or margarine or oil. There's always a fat in there. And we're going to have 1/2 tablespoon of salt. And I'm going to start with 5 cups of flour. The recipe calls for 6, but I always start with less so that my dough doesn't get too heavy. Get your dough hook into your mixer. And we're going to put this on low so it can start to mix. So your goal is for the dough to clean the side of the pan. So we'll just give this a little bit of time here. We're going to be mixing this for 4 to 5 minutes. So I will show you what this looks like in a couple minutes. A minute or so, and you'll see that my bowl is not quite clean yet. So I'm going to need a bit more flour. I'm going to start with about 1/4 to 1/2 cup. I don't want to put too much in, but I'm going to put in about 1/2 cup, so I'll be at 5.5 cups total, and then I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. In almost 5 minutes here, you'll see that the sides of my bowl are nice and clean, and the dough has picked up all the stuff off the side of the bowl. So we are going to stop our mixer. We're going to pull the dough off of our hook. So this has a little bit of a tacky feel, but it's not coming off and sticking to my fingers. We're just going to pull this off of our hook and cover it with a tea towel or a shower cap. And we're going to let this rise on the counter for an hour so that it can become double in size. Take a look at that. Really nice dough. It's got nice and soft. We're just going to cover that up. See you in an hour. My dough is nice and fluffy. So I'm going to take this out of the bowl and we're going to shape our buns. This recipe with the Kaisers will do 12 buns. Don't want to waste any of this dough. Get it out of the sides. Alright, so if you have a bench scraper, now's the time to be using this. This is one of the most wonderful tools for making bread. You want to end up making 12 buns and try to make them about the same size. So we'll just start dividing the dough up into 12. Okay, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. If you want to know if they're the same size, just kind of put your hand over them. Just make sure they feel about the same size so you don't have some buns that are way bigger than others. So I've got my cookie sheet greased and I am rolling my buns. If you want to get this professional look on the top of your buns, a nice smooth top, I can show you how to do it. It's very hard to get the hang of it. You're not just rolling your bun around because then you're not getting anything happening. What you need to do is have this whole part of your hand is going to be on the counter and you're going to cup your ball and you're going to use your thumb and your fingers to push the ball in a circle. So, but make sure you keep this on the counter. And when you're doing this, what you're doing is you're forcing the dough to stretch on the top and all your seam come to the bottom so it's nice and smooth on the top. I'll do another one. And if your dough is a perfect tackiness, it sticks to the counter. Your counter needs to grip it. If your dough is too dry, it tends to slide. So you don't want to add any flour to your counter. And it's nice and smooth. If you can't figure that out, another thing you can do is basically flatten your ball and just stretch all of these pieces to the center. It just takes a lot longer this way, but you're stretching the dough. So you're bringing all your seams to the bottom and to try to get a nice smooth top. It just takes a lot longer to do it this way. Just get all that seam on the bottom where it's nice and flat on the top. I'll show you another one. Smooth, fold all the way around to the middle, and if you put it through your fingers, kind of stretch the top of the dough, push your fingers up in the bottom there, and get all that seam on the bottom so you also have a nice smooth top. So we're going to do this with all 12, and then we're going to flatten them. So what you want to do is when they're on the cookie sheet is just flatten them out, because otherwise they're going to rise really tall, but we want the Kaisers to be a bit more even. So once you've got them all on the cookie sheet, flatten them all like this, and then put a tea towel over top, and we're going to let those rise for an hour. 45 minutes, 50 minutes, and my buns are already getting nice and big. So I've got my oven preheating at 400 degrees. And I've got an egg white with a little bit of cold water, about a teaspoon or 2 teaspoons of cold water. And you want to just brush on the egg white onto the tops of your buns. This is going to give it a nice finish on the top of the bun, and it'll also give the sesame seeds something to stick to. I'm just going to spread that on there. Got a little bit of it going in between my buns, but all right. So the buns are nice and wet on the top. Take your sesame seeds. We're going to sprinkle them on. You can do it without the sesame seeds. It just makes a really nice finish on the top of the buns. Tastes good, looks professional. And then you're going to take either a scissor or a really sharp knife or a blade, and you're going to cut an X in the top of each bun. This will help the tops to not expand too high, and it opens up the top a little bit, and it just looks really pretty. And then we're going to put this in the oven for 20 minutes. So check it after 15 minutes. You might need to turn your tray if you don't have a convection oven. So I will see you again in about 15 minutes to show you what it looks like for after 15 in the oven. It's been 15 minutes. I'm going to take a look at these buns. They're coming out very nice. All right, so I'm just going to turn. I do have a little bit of a hot spot in my oven even though I have convection. And I want these in for another 5 minutes so they're all nice and golden brown, because right now they're still a little bit light on top. So 5 more minutes and then we'll be back. All right, our buns are out of the oven. You can loosen up the bottom with the spatula if they stick a little bit, or if you put parchment paper under, that's probably the best way to do it. But you also want to get this onto a cooling rack right away so they can cool. You don't want to cool them on your cookie sheet because they'll get soggy on the bottom, and we don't want to have that happen. Just cut one of these open a minute if I can. They're super hot. Like this is squishing it. But I just want you to see how nice and light and airy they are inside. These are amazing Kaisers. So give that a try.